So the experience in the field that really inspired me was I was working with people who were fantastic people, really trying to help people on the ground affected by violence, trying to help build peace, trying to respond to humanitarian crisis. But I saw that there were a lot of things that were deeply, deeply wrong with the international system. So I wanted to learn more about that and to see what we could do to fix the system, but we didn't have the time when we were working in conflict zones in Afghanistan, in Congo, in Kosovo. We never had the time to step back and think about it. There are constraints, material constraints, for example, lack of funding. There are problems in terms of logistics. There are the fact that different countries and organizations promote their own interest and try to get what they want from these countries rather than trying to reestablish peace. So these are the explanations that a lot of books have been written about. But what Peaceland is about is another kind of explanation. It's an explanation focused on what happens on an everyday basis on the ground in conflict zones. And what I'm saying in Peaceland is what we think are just mundane elements, everyday elements, such as how do you go as a peace builder to collect information on violence on an everyday basis? Who do you socialize with? Who do you relax with after work, on weekend, in the evening? How do you ensure your own security when you're in conflict zones? All of the things, usually as peace builders or as scholars, we think that they are not important. We think that they don't impact the effectiveness of intervention efforts. And what I show in the book is that they're actually extremely important, and we should talk about them as much as we talk about the financial constraints, the logistical constraints, and the vested interests. I did the research for my first book, The Trouble with the Congo. I tried to understand why there was so little action in support of local peace building, while we knew that local conflicts were fueling a lot of the violence. And I traced the cause to what I call a dominant peace-building culture, meaning a set of understanding, a specific way of seeing the world that is shared by diplomats, by United Nations peacekeepers, by the staff of non-governmental organizations who work in conflict zones. And so for Peaceland, I wanted to see, well, there is this culture which I saw in my first book and which I describe in my first book, but in my first book I show that it affects the approach to local conflicts. And I wanted to see, well, does it affect something else? Does it affect our approach to state building, to sexual violence, to the promotion of democracy, to the reconstruction of a bureaucracy? So that was the second thing that inspired me to write that book. My experience in the field has informed everything. It has given me just first the idea for the book, because if I hadn't been an intervener in a conflict zone myself, I would never have imagined that people as different as a diplomat from the United States, a peacekeeper from Pakistan, and a non-governmental organization staff member from Senegal would share very many similarities in the way they understand situations and in the way they approach their work. So that was just the very idea of the book. It has also given me a lot of anecdotes that I use in the book to illustrate my theoretical points. It has given me contacts so that people would open up and they would feel comfortable sharing information with me that was sensitive, that was confidential, that didn't portray them in the best possible light. And it has given me an understanding of how things work. And therefore, it has enabled me to know what kind of questions I should ask, who to ask them to, how to contact these people, how to phrase my question, and how to understand the answers. So the most important lesson a peace builder should take into account is that what happens on an everyday basis on the ground is not mundane, it's not unimportant, but it's actually extremely important, and it has an enormous impact on the likelihood of success or failure of peace building efforts.